Welcome back, everyone. This is the fourth installment of my mystery illness story. And for the most part, this is going to be the last video talking about the story specifically in detail. From here on out, I'll actually start to talk about different topics like insulin resistance, estrogen dominance, candida, yeast infections, just different things, and provide what I use to kind of prevent any further issues or even help with some of the issues I was having now. But this is the last and final video, hopefully, about the actual story. So the last place that we left off, I kind of talked about my experience with having food poisoning twice. The second time being extremely severe and ended up giving me something called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. What we also talked about was my hair loss and getting told that I had a form of alopecia that was caused by inflammation, and eventually I put two and two together. It was pretty much an autoimmune issue going on, and autoimmune issues usually happen when your body's immune system kind of starts to go haywire, starts to attack your own cells. And that's because something's going on. But again, we're going to get into that later. So I developed small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, SIBO. Then I started to lose my hair. Right. So now I'm bald. But so that's the last place that we left off. What I wanted to add to that, because I pretty much summed up what ended up happening, was just a few other things that has transpired as of recently. So eventually, I, stopped with the traditional doctors and I started to look for alternative help. So I was able to actually run across a naturopath, and this was around 2015, I believe. I ran into a naturopath and she was very helpful. She actually listened to me, and she actually agreed that a lot of what I was dealing with was a result of taking too much antibiotics on top of having mold exposure. So pretty much the antibiotics weakened my immune system. So I was unable to fight off the mold as effectively as I had been doing. I mean, eventually I would have succumbed to the mold toxicity as well, but it probably would have taken much longer. So in a way, it was a blessing in disguise that I was able to catch it sooner and start working on it, in 2013. So now I went to see a naturopath, and this is to not be confused with an integrative doctor, because naturopaths have different credentials, rather. So she was able to do some testing for me. We did some adrenal testing, and adrenals are pretty much they're glands that help you manage stress and many other things. Again, I'm not going to get into it right now, but I was not sleeping still for the most part very well at all, and I was always tired. I was always fatigued. Like, you guys don't understand. I was always tired, and I don't drink coffee, and I don't take energy boosters. So that was out. So this was just a mind over matter thing. I literally forced myself to do a lot of things, social things rather, because I didn't want to do it. But I knew that if I gave into how I was feeling, I would have become a hermit. I wouldn't went anywhere. So I kind of just forced myself to do certain things. But in doing those things, I was always exhausted. So I'll give you guys an example of how this usually would work for me. So for instance, say that there was a party that I wanted to go to, but I was tired. And instead of not going and staying home sleeping, I would go. But when I would come home, I would be wiped out. Or if I would travel, for instance, when I went to Jamaica for, I believe it was 6 days. I had a great time. When I came back, I was in bed for 2 weeks. So it was always this cycle of okay, Moya, you got to do this thing. And then you come back and I would have to recoup. I would have to physically recoup. And a lot of people didn't understand, why I was so tired all the time. And it was a little frustrating to try and explain. Eventually I just stopped explaining. I was just like, I'm tired. I want to go home, So that's one of the reasons like why I sought out this naturopath, because I'm just like, what is happening? I am exhausted all the time. So we ended up doing adrenal testing, and what adrenal testing showed was that I had some adrenal insufficiency. So years ago, adrenal fatigue or adrenal insufficiency wasn't even a thing. Doctors would look at you like you're crazy, and pretty much adrenal deficiency is pretty much your body cannot respond to stress. But the cortisol, the way it's releasing cortisol it's not doing it the proper way. And again, I promise I'm going to do a video on that, but I just kind of wanted to touch on that now. Because a lot of people are tired and they don't understand why. It doesn't matter how much they sleep. It doesn't how much they relax. They're just tired. You could have some adrenal function issues, and adrenal function issues are closely tied to stress. So the more stressed you are, the less your body is capable of dealing with stress, right? So it's kind of like a catch-22. But it showed that I had some adrenal insufficiency, and which is one of the reasons why I was, just exhausted all the time. So that was 2016, I believe, that I went to see her, and she was helpful. But there was a limit to what she could do because she wasn't an MD. So I started on a search to look for a integrative doctor. So these are pretty much doctors who went to medical school, but they also use holistic measures. So they just don't use pharmaceuticals. They just don't depend on the diagnostic testing traditional doctors do. They do other things. So integrative doctor, or functional medicine rather. And it was ridiculously expensive. I mean, expensive. I mean, the prices ranged from $600 to $800 just for the first taken conversation. And I just didn't have that money at the time. I just didn't. So I was just like, well, it's just me and God and research. And that's what I did up until recently. So October of this year, I was finally in the financial position to be able to go and speak to a doctor, integrative doctor, that could kind of give me some confirmation. At this point, I already knew what I was dealing with, and I was just waiting for, I don't even know what I was waiting for. I was just trying to figure it out. But it got to a point where even up until recently, I still wasn't sleeping very well. And I'm like, I need to sleep is restorative. If you don't sleep well, that is a problem. And it most likely is going to lead to issues down the line because you have to sleep. So I ended up seeing this doctor, and she was awesome. Yes, she cost me an arm and a leg, but she was awesome. She listened to me. She pretty much, heard me out, did not claim that what I was saying didn't make any sense. In fact, I heard the opposite of what I had been hearing for the last 10 years. What I heard was that, I'm sorry that you're going through this. We specialize in these types of cases because a lot of traditional doctors do not listen to their patients. This is what a doctor was telling me. And she was just like, so basically the first appointment I had with her, it was an hour and a half intake, just talking, telling her about my story. And in this conversation, I actually learned a lot more about your nervous system and health and stress and how that can cause all types of things. And I'm going to share that with you guys later on as well. But what she ended up saying was that everything that I thought I had, because at this point, I was referring to things in medical terms because I had pretty much been in unofficial medical school for, and I say that lightly, please take that with a grain of salt. I am not a doctor, but I had been teaching myself and researching, me and my sister, for the last 10 years. So I had become pretty familiar with certain things and illnesses and the way the body works and triggers and all that stuff. So I was pretty much just telling her what I had been taking, the cleanses I have done, what I've been eating. And she was just like, okay, well, everything that you've been doing, we recommend to our clients, our patients, and I think you're doing the right thing. But what we'll do for you is we'll order a stool test, um, a SIBO test, and we'll do some blood work, and just to kind of see like where you are. So I was like, okay, great. And just to kind of rewind a little bit, back in 2014, I did a SIBO and no 13, I did SIBO testing and stool testing with my gastroenterologist, and he said he saw nothing. So, and then also in 2018, because I was just so like confused and worried, I ended up getting a colonoscopy. I was 28, I believe. Yes, I was 28 or 29. How old was I in 2018? Anyway, that's besides the point. But I ended up getting a colonoscopy. That completely came back clear. So I'm just like, what is happening? Because also, TMI, I was dealing with a lot of constipation, which is not unusual when you're dealing with candida issues or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. It's not unusual. So that was 2013, 14. They didn't see anything. So I get the results back from the integrative doctor, and everything that I suspected was going on with me was confirmed with the stool testing and the blood testing. So as far as the candida is concerned, yes, I had a systemic issue, right? And systemic candida is you don't want it. And it's one of those things that it just causes all types of issues because of all the toxins that it releases. It's stealing certain nutrients like iron, magnesium, like it just kind of throws your body off. So she confirmed that that was an issue. I did have a yeast overgrowth, not vaginal yeast overgrowth, but like all over. Two, she also confirmed that I still had SIBO, even though I had been treated for it. And that's another story for another day. But I still had SIBO. And also, I had several different bacteria strains in my stomach that's indicative of inflammation. Not only inflammation, but autoimmune issues. So pretty much the way she explained it to me was, you have an overgrowth of pathogenic bacteria, and this explains why you had the body aches. This explains why you had the hair loss, and this explains why you haven't been feeling so well in general, and why every time you ate, your stomach bothered you because you have pathogenic bacteria in your stomach. So in layman's terms, that means that there's more bad bacteria in my stomach than there is good bacteria. Right. So she says that explains the hair loss, because those inflammatory markers, if you're inflamed, you can't control where your inflammation goes. And also, just to do a little rewind as well, during my ordeal, I did go to a chiropractor because of my left side, lower back, left leg pain that I mentioned before, that it would get so bad I couldn't even walk on it sometimes. And what she told me was that a lot of times, lower back pain and even leg pain is actually a sign of inflammation in your digestive system. And at that moment, when she told me that, it clicked. This was prior to me going to the integrative doctor. And she's the one who actually put that bug in my ear, like, oh, your lower back pain is probably because of your digestive system. It's crazy how the body presents certain issues. And what she told me was that I should try more anti-inflammation foods. So like turmeric, ginger, those types of things to kind of help. And lo and behold, once I started incorporating more of those things, the inflammation kind of came down, and my left leg and my left side and my lower left back didn't hurt as much. It still hurt, but it didn't hurt as much. So I just wanted to throw that piece in there as far as my chiropractor is concerned. So back to the integrative doctor that I saw a couple months ago. She basically confirmed everything was going on with me. And what she told me was that had I not been doing everything that I had been doing for the last 10 years, I would be in a very bad position. And that, I did the right thing and my research paid off. And now it's just a matter of time before we start to work on those things and, resolve those things completely instead of just kind of going in this circle. And because eventually, like, there's only but so much you can do for yourself before you have to enlist the help of a professional. So I'm just blessed that I was able to find someone that was willing to listen to me and willing to do these diagnostic tests to help confirm or even identify specifically what was actually happening. So, you guys, that is as far as my story goes. I hope it was clear. I hope I wasn't jumping all over the place. But that is as far as my story goes. And moving forward, I just want to talk about how to prevent these things, what to look out for, and just how to kind of take care of yourself in general. I know that dealing with this type of illness over the last 10 years made me very, 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 very focused, not even just focused, but very aware of like my skin health, my teeth health, my cleansing. And so I learned so much that is very beneficial, not only to me and my family, but I realized like this is something that is beneficial for anyone. And that if the information is out there, maybe, just maybe, I can help someone prevent going down this road, because it has not been fun. It has not been easy. But I will say that I thank God for bringing me through it. I'm not completely out of the woods yet, but from where I was, I have so much to be thankful for. And I just want to use myself as an example to help others out there that may be dealing with this, or just to give you some tips so you won't have to deal with it. So thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope you stay tuned for all the other great information that I plan on sharing with you guys. I really appreciate you listening to me, and I will talk to you guys next time.